Subnautica is many things. An exploration game, a horror game, a melancholy meditation on beauty within death, a video for another day. But at least to me, what stands out most is the way it exposes the illusion of control, the arrogance of trying to contain nature, and the horror when it all inevitably fails. Spoiler warning, there will be story elements explored in this video. Now, we humans are obsessed with control and containing things. From quarantining diseases, I'm thinking smallpox, to managing ecosystems, I'm thinking nature preserves. We have long believed we contain parts of the natural world. Well, Subnautica asks, what happens when you are on the other side of those containment measures? At the start, you think you've escaped disaster. You look up through the viewport of your escape pod to see the aurora burning before you crash onto the surface of planet 4546b. You climb out of your pod, half blinded by sunlight and smoke, and around you, nothing. Just an endless ocean all the way to the horizon, drifting clouds, and the burning wreck of the aurora. I'll never forget my first dive into those waters. The beautiful fish everywhere, the vibrant, twisting coral formations stretching out in every direction, and the endless ocean calling out to be explored. The rush it gave me. I just wanted to go and explore everywhere at once. But despite this endless ocean, this isn't freedom. Not by a long shot. Subnautica traps you long before you realise you're trapped. You've simply traded one version of containment for another. From a maintenance job detail aboard the Aurora to an alien planet you can't escape. There is an actual story, a campaign to Subnautica, and we'll touch on that, but the real story, the one hiding in the depths, pun intended, is about control, slipping through your fingers, is about a world dying beautifully, an advanced ancient civilization that tried to tame nature and failed, and a planet that will not let you leave. But first, please, a moment of your time to thank today's sponsor for keeping my CMOS power cells charged up. Now, even when you're fighting for survival against the predators of Subnautica, you're going to need some premium audio gear to maintain your sanity. And that leads us nicely onto today's sponsor, Raycon. And they must really like me because they sent me the essential open earbuds for Christmas to try out. Now that my youngest is beginning to sleep through the night, I finally found the energy to get back into my fitness, and after a Christmas of gorging on nothing but chocolate, I certainly need it. I've been cracking on with these since Boxing Day to get a feel for them, and you know what, fair play, they're pretty decent.
Right, I just finished a half an hour run in the pouring rain. I'm wet, I'm cold, but these things are still working. They haven't stopped once. Nice.
The sound is just as good as some of the more expensive ones, but these are a hell of a lot more affordable. Just like my other Raycons, they don't block out everything, so I'm still aware of what's going on in the house. They sort of sit just outside the ear, so I can still hear my podcast while I fit in some push-ups, and I can still hear my kids giving my fiance a hard time. The ear hooks can be tilted and moved to fit my ear perfectly, and so far they haven't fallen off. I can connect them to my devices really easily, they're water resistant for all the ear sweaters out there, and they've got 36 hours of battery life. And if they aren't to your taste, they come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And of course it's January, so they're on sale. If you want to crush your New Year's goals like me, the essential open earbuds are here to help. Click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/MrIllustratedopen to get 20% off site-wide. Thanks again Raycon for sponsoring the video, and now let's get back to Subnautica. Before we dive into Subnautica's oceans, we first need to understand what we mean by containment, not just as a literal or a concept, but as a force that shapes every moment of your time here. Containment seems simple on the surface. It means restricting something, keeping it under control, under your power. We bury nuclear waste underground, quarantine dangerous pathogens in labs. It gives us a sense of mastery, of dominance. But containment is also a primal thing, the thrill of holding something powerful in your grasp, of being the one in control. Picture a scientist carefully holding an unnameable, civilization-ending virus in their hands. In Subnautica, you are never truly in control. You're at the planet's mercy. Above the waves, you're a victim of thirst, hunger, gravity, and radiation from the aurora. Beneath the waves, this vulnerability becomes even more present. Not only do you have a deadly virus now working its way through your system, but there is the ocean itself. The ocean is beautiful, sure, but it's suffocating, literally. You cannot breathe without diving equipment, which you, the player, have to build by scavenging resources and minerals from the environment. It's not just provided. The crushing depths and wild terrain control where you can go and for how long. You quickly realize that your survival depends entirely on this alien ecosystem. The early safe shallows and kelp forests may seem calm and relatively safe, but even here predators are standing by. There are crashfish waiting for you in the caves and stalkers lurking in the kelp. Every dive becomes a calculated risk. You have to weigh up and consider, are you going to have enough oxygen for how far down you're diving? How hungry and thirsty are you? Do you need to craft a medkit before descending? And more. All conspiring to remind you that you are not free here. And it's very easy to get lost in those twisting caves, and before you know it, you've got 30 seconds of air left, and now you're panicking, praying that you'll find an exit and be able to swim to the surface before you drown. Of course, a player can extend their control, you can carry an air bladder or blast the Reapers in the face, but these measures are fleeting. That air will run out, the Reaper will come back, and you'll get hungry again.
Calorie intake recommended.
The ocean is never passive. Certain biomes and points of interest reward exploration and base building, sure, but you're not off the hook. Predators are always waiting, ready to challenge your perceived control. For me, even the seemingly harmless exploration of various wrecks saw my poor Seamoth vulnerable to attack, and on more than one occasion I would come back out to my Seamoth to replenish my air, only to find it gone. It had been destroyed, and now I was hundreds of meters down with just seconds of air left. Game over. And the further down you go, the more dangerous it becomes, the more hazardous the environment, the larger the predators, and the higher the stakes. Subnautica is set within the crater of an underwater volcano encircled by the Void, a dead zone. The immediate surrounding area of the crater is populated with microscopic life, colossal leviathans, and beyond that, an endless opaque ocean of nothing. But even the few creatures you encounter, even in the early stages, can humble a new player just as much as a leviathan. The itty-bitty crashfish will explode and kill you if you get too close to its nest, which you have to do if you want to find sulfur. Containment is supposed to protect us, but on 4546b, it traps you instead, and when containment fails, the consequences can be catastrophic. If Subnautica teaches us that this alien ocean can be a prison to an outsider, the story of the Architect shows what happens when even a civilization of unimaginable power tries and fails to control the uncontrollable. To understand why Planet 4546b is under quarantine, we need to talk about the Architect. Now, I'm summarizing a bit for the sake of brevity, and this is a bit of a lore dump, but the TLDR is that the Architects were a civilization so advanced they no longer considered themselves individuals, minds transferred freely between organic and synthetic bodies, a culture connected by data, not speech. They did not dream, they did not make music, their idea of self was collective, not personal.
Why do you keep saying we? How many of you are there?
One of us and all of us. We do not think of ourselves as individual, distinct.
Everything was done for the better of everyone. One of them, Alan, not his actual name, but that is what he calls himself in the game, is an architect we encounter in Below Zero, stored inside a containment cube. He transfers his consciousness into the protagonist Robin's mind without hesitation or even asking for permission. Not out of malice, but because switching and sharing their minds collectively between organics and cybernetics is their bread and butter.
The facility identified hospitable capacity within your cerebral cortex.
You are in my head? I offered you my PDA! Get out!
Oh no. Does your kind perceive a boundary between cybernetic and organic components?
To the Architects, our pride in our individuality is as alien to them as is their shared consciousness to us. Anyway, during the Architects' expansion into new star systems, they encountered Kara, a bacterium so lethal that even their technology could not contain it. Their interconnected biology, which made them strong, also made them critically vulnerable to a threat like this. By the time they managed to quarantine the core worlds, the bacterium had already killed at least 143 billion. Roughly 1,000 years before the events of Subnautica, Alan led a research mission to the untouched planet 4546b to develop a cure. The Architects built vast facilities across the Arctic sector and inside the volcanic crater. The crater facilities were devoted to Kara research and quarantine enforcement, while the Arctic sites were used mainly for storage and some more personal things. Within the crater, 4 main facilities can be found: The Quarantine Enforcement Platform, a massive gun designed to obliterate any spacecraft entering or leaving the planet if containment failed. The Disease Research Laboratory deep in the Lost River studied Kara and experimented on the local wildlife. In the inactive lava zone, the geothermal plant provided energy to all the Architect structures, and in the active lava zone, the primary containment facility housed the imprisoned Sea Emperor and her eggs. The Arctic facilities held Alan's containment cube, tools for studying creatures, fabrication equipment, energy production systems, the phase gate home, and more. Together, these sites were a testament to the Architects' incredible technology and their arrogance. In the Disease Research Facility, Alan's team discovered a unique property in the Sea Emperor Leviathan. Its body produced an enzyme that inhibited Kara. One Emperor and her eggs were moved to the primary containment facility for further study, but alas, she was too old to produce a stable enzyme, and so attention turned to her children, but the eggs refused to hatch. Those removed by force died instantly. They required a specific solution of chemicals from various biomes within the local environment to hatch safely, and understandably, the Sea Emperor was not forthcoming with this information to her captors. Frustrated, Alan experimented on the eggs of the sea dragon, the Emperor's closest genetic relative, hoping to reverse engineer a solution to hatch the Sea Emperor's eggs by force.
We noticed that a species of Leviathan young produced an enzyme that is efficient against the bacteria. I thought if we incubated sea dragon eggs, we might expedite their hatching. I was not wrong.
But
It would appear that sea dragon parents are stronger and more motivated than our facility was rated to handle.
Now, despite their vast intellect, the Architects could not foresee the consequences of interfering with nature in this way. Intelligence alone obviously does not guarantee wisdom. So, confident in their mastery of this world, their arrogance led them to not even consider for one moment that stealing a mother's unhatched children might have dire consequences. Well, it did. The mother sea dragon came looking for her young, followed the pheromone trail back to the DRF, and then smashed into the facility, killing herself and collapsing the structure. Just one infected specimen escaped into the environment, and that was all it took to unleash Kara across the planet. It was a catastrophe for the Architects. The bacterium was loose. In a desperate response, the Architects created the Warpers, biomechanical assassins programmed to hunt down and kill infected life forms wherever they appeared. They also activated the Quarantine Enforcement Platform to shoot down any approaching or departing ships. Even so, Kara ravaged the planet's biosphere and laid waste to the ecosystem. Entire species were pushed to the brink of extinction, the oceans rendered almost barren. Only the imprisoned Sea Emperor remained as hope. With no cure, failing facilities, and Alan himself infected, the surviving Architects did the only thing left to them. They uploaded their minds into containment cubes. The containers became the contained. A civilization capable of crossing the stars was undone by a microscopic organism. Very War of the Worlds, is it not? The Architects assumed containment was the same as mastery. They completely underestimated the primal force of the planet, just as we often underestimate our own environment. And even with technology far beyond our own, they could not master life itself. While the Architect's story is one of ancient hubris, as players we find ourselves walking a very similar path, imposing order on a world that does not belong to us, subject to the same rules, the same ecosystem, and ultimately the same checks on control. Unknowingly, we, the sole survivor of the Aurora, begin repeating the same actions as the Architects. We scavenge natural resources, scan and catalogue wildlife, kill and consume flora and fauna, build bases, filter the water, and invent increasingly elaborate systems to manage this world. We even build aquariums to observe domesticated fish. Yet, just beyond those thin titanium walls is an ocean full of hungry predators just waiting to humble us. Every time we trap a creature in a tank or in some way impose order, we become a little bit more like the Architects, just another visitor trying to contain the uncontrollable. And yet, the deeper we go, the more Subnautica reminds us, you are the one being contained. The Lost River's toxic green brine, its claustrophobic tunnels, the terrifying ghost leviathans, the decaying ruins of the disease research facility, all of these feel like monuments, signs that say, turn back, this is where control ends. Go deeper and you'll find the skeleton of the mother sea dragon who gave her life to free her children. Nearby lies the skull of the gargantuan leviathan, a creature so massive that just its head dwarfs your largest submersible. In this world, even the long dead are reminders of your insignificance in comparison to the size of beings and events that transpired here. You're not in charge, you're a tourist, you're merely sightseeing. And you're not the first human to try and survive here either. The remnants of the Degassi crew tell another story of control and collapse. Just like you, they were shot down by the quarantine enforcement platform. They built bases to escape the elements and ventured deeper into the ocean in search of answers. But isolation and desperation bred ignorance and arrogance. When Marguerite dragged an incapacitated Reaper Leviathan back to their base in the Grand Reef to be dissected and studied, another followed. It destroyed their base and shattered their fragile illusion of control. Their fate mirrors the Architects and the Sea Dragon. If you push nature too far, nature will push back harder. And as you descend into these forgotten histories, locate the destroyed habitats, discover the bones of the dead titans, and explore the decaying laboratories, Subnautica shows you the truth. Every attempt at mastery here is temporary, it's fragile, and ultimately insignificant. Human bases, alien facilities, enormous creatures, all of them decay while the planet endures. And all of this struggle, all these warnings and echoes lead to a single morally complex choice. The only path to freedom, to a conclusion, is also the path that forces us to exert ultimate control. Ultimately, to win Subnautica, you have to accept that survival and containment are inseparable. To survive, you must contain the Kharaa infection, a presence that swims in the same ocean as you. Kharaa is another force of control. It's not just a disease. It attacks the immune system meant to protect you, rewrites your DNA, and gradually erodes your executive functions, with death being the end result once it achieves full control. To break that control and free yourself from its influence, you must accomplish what the Architects could not. And that leads you to a morally complex act, releasing the Sea Emperor's offspring. It is an act of compassion, necessity, and a little bit of manipulation. In order to cure your infection, spread the cure across the planet, and destroy the Kharaa bacterium for good, you have to hatch the Sea Emperor's offspring. But in doing so, your actions result in the death of the Sea Emperor, probably the grandest entity on the planet that has been around since before even the Architects came to her home. She sacrifices herself so that countless others may live. Containment finally broken, and yet in another way imposed again. And even knowing that without intervention, Kharaa likely would eventually have consumed the ecosystem, unless the Emperor was immortal, the ethical weight remains. The Emperor's enzyme was fighting the infection, it was keeping its full control at bay, it wasn't curing it. Life in the crater was limping along, but stable. An equilibrium had formed, imperfect but functional. You can still encounter Kharaa-infected life, but peepers sucked down into the Sea Emperor's containment facility via vents were carrying trace amounts of the enzyme back to the rest of the crater. So, the question remains, did the ocean ask to be saved? Or did you impose your will upon it because you needed to survive? What gave us the right to make these decisions when nature was simply taking its course? Perhaps the only one truly trapped here was you. This is Subnautica's cruel paradox. To gain freedom, you have to exert control. To survive, you must choose a path shaped by moral ambiguity. Even the correct decision carries the weight of control. Yes, you save the planet and rid it of Kharaa, but your decisions still result in the death of a great ancient being that has been alive for more than 1,000 years. No good deed goes unpunished. And just like the Architects, every step towards this mastery comes with a cost, one that follows you long after you leave the planet. Subnautica's true horror isn't the sea dragons in the lava zone or the ghost leviathans in the void, but fair play, they're fucking terrifying. It's the realization that we are obsessed with and cannot escape control, whether out of desire, curiosity, or necessity. The game reminds us that no matter our intelligence or technology, we are not masters of the natural world. Survival here is negotiation and compromise, not domination. And every attempt to impose order on 4546b, every base you build, every biome you explore, every creature you corral, is met with the quiet reminder that you are a visitor here, and a fragile one at that. Across the world, the message is the same, from the wreckage of the Aurora to the tragedy of the Degassi crew to the wrecks in the Arctic zone to the haunting remains of the Architect laboratories. Containment is never absolute. It fails, it breaks, it collapses under its own arrogance. For the architects, their arrogance and ideology led to their downfall. They became trapped in their own databases, imprisoned for 1,000 years until a lesser species came to release them and teach them a new perspective. For the player, the journey is no less exacting. As we explore, learn about the virus, and delve into the ocean depths, the world constantly reminds us that we are not in control here. Freedom comes only at the cost of witnessing death and bearing the weight of our choices. And even then, that freedom you think you now have, it's fake. When you finally leave 4546b, you're not finally escaping containment, you're simply trading one cage for another.
Welcome home to Alterra. Permission to land will be granted once you have settled your outstanding balance of 1 trillion credits.
The debt waiting for you back home is just a new version of the same structure that imprisoned the architects. A reminder that the systems we build for control ultimately control us in return. In Subnautica, you never truly escape containment. You just surface into a larger one. Please hit the like and subscribe if you made it this far, leave your comments below to share your thoughts, big up the patrons and channel members, and special thanks to Viger, Zehex and Andre Bashert.